Number 10. Sure, Rawhide was a western, but sometimes it flirted with the supernatural. One episode gave us ghost riders, another had glowing St. Elmo's fire, and yes, even a mysterious gypsy wagon that seemed to move all by itself. Fans tuned in expecting cattle, got a dose of Twilight Zone instead. Was it spooky? A little. Was it weird? Absolutely. This was the cowboy show where you could get a horror story on Monday, a morality play on Friday, and still end up back on the trail next week.
I think I see what you're doing wrong. Now look, try turning your wrist over before you let it go. I have turned it over. I've turned it over and under and inside out.
Number 9. By the time season 8 rolled around, Rawhide decided to get cartoony, literally. The final season's opening credits were fully animated, making it one of the only westerns to ditch live-action intros for stylized art. It looked more Saturday morning than primetime grit, and fans didn't know what to think. Was CBS trying to modernize? Or just desperate to freshen up an old show? Either way, nothing says serious cowboy drama quite like a doodle of Clint Eastwood herding cattle. Spoiler, the experiment didn't save the series. Number 8. Behind the scenes, Rawhide was a battlefield. At one point, producers tried to push more experimental, darker storylines. Less about cows, more about people. CBS executives freaked. Their solution? A purge on Christmas Eve, firing much of the creative staff and demanding, in no uncertain terms, put the cows back in. Fans never knew it, but the show's sudden whiplash in tone came from this infamous shakeup. Forget peace on earth. For Rawhide's writers, that holiday was anything but merry and bright. Number 7. At first, Clint Eastwood's Rowdy Yates was just the eager young sidekick to Eric Fleming's grizzled trail boss. But when Fleming left in season 8, CBS needed a new face to lead. Suddenly, Eastwood wasn't just the sidekick, he was the star. This last-minute promotion put him in charge of the drive and gave him more dramatic weight, even if the show itself was limping toward cancellation. Ironically, Rawhide's decline came just as Eastwood was leveling up to movie superstardom. Hollywood legend status, right around the corner. Trail boss practice, courtesy of CBS. Number 6. Those opening narrations in Rawhide weren't just TV fluff, they were inspired by the actual diary of a 19th century trail boss named George C. Duffield. The show's creators used his notes to capture the grit, monotony, and dangers of driving cattle across the frontier. It's a weirdly authentic touch for a series that also had, haunted wagons and rogue circus performers. One minute you're grounded in history, the next you're riding with ghosts. Still, it gave the show an air of credibility, at least when it wasn't dabbling in cowboy sci-fi. We're only halfway through and we've already had ghost wagons, face reconstruction, and an animated Clint Eastwood. If that's the warm-up, just imagine what's left. Quick pit stop, if you're enjoying this trip down the strangest cattle trail in TV history, hit that subscribe button. It's easier than herding 3,000 cows across the frontier, and you don't even need a horse. Alright, back to the roundup. The trail's only getting weirder from here. Number 5. Most westerns treated the US cavalry as heroic saviors. Rawhide? Not always. Some episodes painted them as corrupt, cruel, or flat-out dishonorable. One story even worked as an allegory for Vietnam, years before that war officially dominated American TV screens. For a cattle drive series in the early 1960s, this was gutsy stuff. Viewers tuned in for cowboys and ended up with proto-political commentary. Imagine sitting down with Dad expecting John Wayne vibes, and instead getting a lecture on military abuse of power. It wasn't just weird for a western, it was practically rebellious for network TV. Number 4. If you think old TV shied away from tough subjects, Rawhide begs to differ. The show tackled morphine addiction, racial prejudice, post-Civil War guilt, and even issues of justice that still feel timely today. Sure, one week you might get a haunted cattle drive, but the next you'd see a harrowing story about soldiers struggling with withdrawal. This tonal whiplash kept Rawhide unpredictable. Part morality play, part action show, part frontier therapy session. It was TV daring to peek under the cowboy hat at problems no one else wanted to air. Call it messy, but undeniably ahead of its time. Number 3. Fans knew the drill. Every episode of Rawhide ended the same way. The credits rolled as the drive pushed on with that trusty "head 'em up, move 'em out" line. It was ritual, comfort food TV. But one episode shattered that formula. Instead of cowboys fading into the horizon, the credits rolled over a quiet town street. It was disorienting, almost eerie, like your favorite sitcom suddenly ditching the laugh track. Small? Maybe. But for fans in the 60s, it was a subtle reminder that even a cattle drive show could yank the rug out. Rawhide wasn't always predictable, and that made it weirdly exciting. Number 2. Even if you've never seen Rawhide, odds are you've heard its theme song. Written by Dmitri Tiomkin with lyrics by Ned Washington and belted out by Frankie Lane, the tune became bigger than the show itself. Energetic, dramatic, and kind of absurdly catchy, it burned its way into pop culture. It's been spoofed, covered, and even blasted in the Blues Brothers decades after the show ended. Imagine tuning into a cattle drive drama and accidentally creating one of the most iconic TV themes in history. That's Rawhide's legacy, a song that made cows sound epic, and a chorus that outlived the trail it celebrated. Seriously, go ahead and hum it. You already know the words. Number 1. The weirdest fact of all, how it ended for Eric Fleming. After years of anchoring Rawhide as Gil Favor, Fleming left in season 8 due to behind-the-scenes tension. That was strange enough. But what happened after is downright tragic. Just a few years later, while filming a movie in Peru, Fleming died in a freak accident, drowning in a river at only 41. It's the kind of shocking twist that casts a long shadow over Rawhide's history. Fans remember him as the stoic leader, the tough-as-leather boss who kept the herd moving. But his real-life story ended in chaos, making his already mythic presence on Rawhide feel even more haunting. When Eastwood stepped up, the show stumbled, but Fleming's absence was felt forever. Number 12. Before James Arness became Marshal Matt Dillon,
Get off the trail, Marshal. You got no business with us.
I'm making it my business. Mike Postle decided to stay in town. Now you men turn around and head back.
He was a World War II veteran who nearly didn't make it home. He was gravely wounded at Anzio, carrying shrapnel in his leg that caused pain throughout his life. On set, that injury made long days in boots and on horseback even tougher. Yet, he rarely complained, choosing instead to push through for 20 years. So when you see Dillon walking with that steady cowboy stride, that wasn't acting grit. That was Arness's real-life toughness shining through. Number 11. It's hard to imagine anyone but Amanda Blake as Miss Kitty.
Good. Now look, you gonna get out of here right away?
I sure am. It's no fun getting shot at.
It's the truth, isn't it?
Fiery saloon owner with a soft spot for Marshall Dillon, but she wasn't the producer's first pick. The role was originally offered to actress Polly Bond, who passed. Blake stepped in and made the part unforgettable, giving Kitty that perfect balance of sass and vulnerability. For 19 seasons, she anchored Dodge City's social scene. Red hair, quick wit, and all. Sometimes the backup choice ends up defining the role forever, and Blake proved that in spades. Number 10. For more than a decade, viewers simply knew him as Doc.
Don't you want to dance or something?
Well, that'd look kind of silly.
What?
Well, you and me dancing together.
Played by Milburn Stone, the character was indispensable, patching up Dillon, keeping Dodge healthy, and offering dry wit in between. But no one seemed bothered that the town doctor didn't have a first name. Finally, in season 16, Stone got to decide. He christened himself Galen. After all those years, the man deserved an identity beyond Doc. Imagine being on TV every week for 16 years, and people still don't know your first name. Number 9. 20 years, 635 episodes, and James Arness appeared in every single one. That's a TV record few stars can brag about. While other actors rotated in and out, Dillon was the immovable anchor of Dodge City. Producers even considered giving him breaks, but Arness insisted on showing up, injuries and all. It's almost hard to picture an episode without him, and thankfully, no one had to. If Gunsmoke was Dodge City, then Dillon was the law, the myth, and the mustache holding it together. Number 8. Ever heard someone say, "Time to get out of Dodge"?
You got something on your mind?
There's a man named Hank Springer lying dead in that jail of yours down the street.
That bit of slang came straight from Gunsmoke. In countless episodes, outlaws and drifters were warned to leave Dodge City, usually by Dillon himself. The line stuck with audiences, slipping into everyday speech as shorthand for "let's scram." Decades later, people still use it without realizing its Western TV roots. So next time your road trip buddy says it's time to get out of Dodge, remember, you're quoting James Arness, not your GPS. Number 7, long before Dodge City hit the small screen,
Marshal? Which room is Dan Grass? Up there. At the end of the balcony.
moody and surprisingly dark, the radio Dylan, voiced by William Conrad, was rougher around the edges, with stories tackling moral ambiguity and harsh frontier justice. When the show moved to television in 1955, some of that grit softened for a wider audience. Still, the DNA of that original radio drama gave Gunsmoke a depth other TV westerns just didn't have. Number 6. Over 20 seasons, Gunsmoke became a revolving door for future stars.
Look, if you're so edgy, why don't you go out and work it off someplace?
Well, how would you suggest that I do that?
You might go out and arrest somebody and drag them back in here and stick them in the cell till they rot.
You'd spot Burt Reynolds before his mustache made him famous, Harrison Ford before the Millennium Falcon, even Jodie Foster as a child actress. The show was basically Hollywood boot camp in cowboy boots. Some appearances were so random, you almost did a double take. Wait, is that the dad from the Brady Bunch in Dodge City? Yep, that happened. It's proof Gunsmoke wasn't just a western, it was a training ground for legends in waiting. We're only halfway through and already knee-deep in war wounds, secret first names, and surprise guest stars. Which of these facts made you stop and go, hold on really? Drop your favorite in the comments. I love seeing which one surprised longtime fans the most. And if you're enjoying this trip through Dodge City's Stranger Side, go ahead and give the video a like. Trust me, we've still got some wild twists waiting in the next 5 facts. Number 5. When Gunsmoke debuted, episodes were a brisk 30 minutes.
Maybe I just didn't like his looks.
But by 1961, the show doubled to an hour, giving storylines more room to breathe. The shift also changed the pacing. Less shootout of the week, more character-driven drama. Even the iconic opening credits got tweaked, toning down the gunslinger showdown to ease concerns about TV violence. The move was risky, but it worked. Instead of fading, Gunsmoke evolved, proving it wasn't just another western. It was a western with the stamina of a marathon runner. Number 4. After 20 seasons, you'd think Gunsmoke would ride off into the sunset with a grand finale. Nope. CBS canceled it in 1975 with little notice, leaving the cast blindsided and fans without closure. There was no farewell episode, no final showdown, no heartfelt goodbye in Dodge City, just silence. Considering the show had been a cultural juggernaut for 2 decades, the abrupt ending felt almost surreal. Luckily, reunion movies in the late 80s and 90s gave fans a chance to revisit Dodge one last time. Number 3. In one of the later episodes, a young Gary Busey appeared as a doomed cowboy suffering from a brain tumor.
Come on, take it easy. They're calling the state. They're calling me. Come on. Think you gonna do anything about it? Huh?
And here's the strange part. His character's death is said to be one of the most medically accurate portrayals on television at the time. That's not the usual claim to fame for a western, where people typically just clutched their chest and fell dramatically. Busey, of course, went on to have one of Hollywood's wildest careers, but his Gunsmoke moment was hauntingly unforgettable. Number 2. Being Marshal Dillon wasn't easy, especially on James Arness's 6'7" frame. Between his old war injury, endless hours on horseback, and marathon filming schedules.
Well, there's a circuit judge coming around this way next week. You gonna testify to what you saw?
Yes, sir. I will. I'll be glad to, Marshal.
You got a prisoner, lock him up.
The job took a heavy toll. He battled arthritis, back pain, and constant fatigue, but rarely let it show on screen. Arness once admitted that some days he was barely holding it together physically, yet there he was, towering over Dodge City like an unshakable force. Dillon may have been fiction, but the stamina it took to play him? Very real. Number 1. In 1967, CBS faced a scheduling dilemma. Gunsmoke was slipping in ratings and executives considered axing it. But the network's president, who happened to be a big fan, pulled a last-minute shuffle. The casualty? Gilligan's Island. Yep. The castaways got booted off TV so Dodge City could stay standing. That single decision gave Gunsmoke 8 more years on the air. So while Gilligan and friends never made it off their island, Matt Dillon kept patrolling Dodge until 1975. One show's shipwreck became another's lifeline. When Bonanza premiered in 1959, most Americans were still watching TV in black and white, but NBC had a little trick up its sleeve. Parent company RCA happened to sell color televisions. What better way to boost sales than to make a primetime Western shot entirely in color? It was a gamble. Color filming was expensive, and most viewers couldn't even see the difference yet, but the strategy worked. Suddenly, people wanted to see the Ponderosa Ranch in living color, and RCA sold more televisions. In other words, the Cartwrights weren't just ranchers, they were also accidental appliance salesmen.
Come on, the three of us lazy, shiftless whelps better get back to work.
Number 17. Ever notice that Ben, Adam, Hoss, and Little Joe rarely change clothes? That wasn't laziness, it was strategy. By keeping the characters in the same costumes, the studio could reuse stock footage without worrying about continuity. Need a quick horseback shot? Just recycle a clip from last season. It saved time, money, and headaches for editors. The downside? It looked like the Cartwrights never did laundry. Imagine spending 14 years on a ranch and never changing your shirt. At least Little Joe's green jacket became iconic, though we can only assume it smelled like horse, dust, and whatever stew Hop Sing was cooking.
Where's my son?
May I ask you, Mr. Cartwright?
Number 16. Lorne Greene played the wise patriarch Ben Cartwright, but here's the twist. He was only about 13 years older than his on-screen sons. Pernell Roberts, Adam, was born in 1928, while Greene was born in 1915. That makes Ben old enough to be a father. Barely. By TV math, it checked out, but in real life, Greene could have passed as a slightly older brother. Still, thanks to his commanding voice, nicknamed the Voice of Doom from his radio days, nobody questioned his authority. Lesson learned. If your baritone is deep enough, Hollywood will cast you as the dad, even if you're still shopping for your first minivan.
If our folks don't let us get together.
Number 15. Michael Landon, the heartthrob Little Joe, was only in his early 20s when Bonanza began, but he had a secret. His hair was going prematurely gray. To keep Joe looking young and rugged, Landon dyed his hair throughout the series. Add to that the fact that he often wore lifts in his boots to look taller, and you realize TV Magic was hard at work. Fans swooned over Little Joe's curls, never knowing they were carefully maintained with dye jobs. Considering Landon went on to star in Little House on the Prairie, you could say his hair was already practicing longevity.
With the looks of this weather, liable to get a little wet.
Number 14. The Cartwrights lived on the massive Ponderosa Ranch, but if you try mapping it, good luck. Depending on the episode, the ranch stretched from Lake Tahoe to Carson City, basically covering half of Nevada. Sometimes it included areas that weren't even geographically possible. Writers treated the Ponderosa less like a ranch and more like a magical kingdom with elastic borders. Need a mining town nearby? Suddenly it existed. Need wilderness? Just expand the map. Fans who tried to piece it together quickly gave up. Let's just say the Cartwrights owned more land than the Louisiana Purchase. Give or take a mountain.
You know who I am, then you know you're on the Ponderosa.
Saddle up with the Cartwright family.
Number 13. Producer David Dortort didn't just want another shoot-'em-up western. He imagined Bonanza as a frontier Camelot. Ben Cartwright was the wise King Arthur, ruling over the Ponderosa instead of a castle. His three sons, Adam, Hoss, and Little Joe, were like knights of the round table, each representing different virtues. Even Hop Sing, the family cook, played the role of loyal court servant. It sounds a little highbrow for a cowboy show, but it worked. Dortort used the Arthurian blueprint to make the show about family honor, moral lessons, and noble quests. Just swap swords for 6 shooters. No wonder the Cartwrights felt bigger than life. They were literally written as legends on horseback. Number 12. While most westerns focused on cattle rustlers and saloon brawls, Bonanza wasn't afraid to get serious. Episodes tackled racism, anti-Semitism, slavery, domestic violence, and even environmental issues. Radical stuff for 1960s network television. Some stations in the South refused to air certain episodes because they showed the Cartwrights defending African-American characters or standing up against prejudice. Michael Landon often pushed for scripts that carried a moral message, even if it made censors nervous. For a show set in the 1860s, Bonanza managed to comment on the 1960s just as much. The Cartwrights weren't just ranchers, they were TV's version of moral watchdogs, using their horses to gallop right into America's conscience.
Joe, what do you think you're doing? You can't go in there.
Number 11. Dan Blocker, who played the lovable giant Hoss, died suddenly in 1972 from a pulmonary embolism after surgery. The producers made a groundbreaking choice. Instead of quietly writing him off or pretending nothing happened, they acknowledged Hoss's death on screen. This was virtually unheard of in television at the time. Most shows replaced actors, ignored the absence, or invented convenient storylines, but Bonanza faced it head on. The loss was so heavy that the show itself only lasted one more season before ending in 1973. Fans still remember the shock of losing Hoss, both the character and the actor. In many ways, his death marked the beginning of the end for America's longest-running TV Western. Number 10. The fictional Ponderosa Ranch became so iconic that developers built a real-life version in Nevada near Lake Tahoe. Opened in 1967, the Ponderosa Ranch theme park featured replicas of the Cartwrights' ranch house and barn, plus live stunt shows and tours. The cast even filmed some episodes on location there, making the lines between reality and TV blur. Fans flocked to see where their favorite TV cowboys supposedly lived, turning Bonanza into both entertainment and tourism. The park operated until 2004, long after the show ended. For decades, families could literally step into the Cartwrights' world, minus the cattle drives, gunfights, and the occasional outlaw hiding behind the barn. Number 9. Everyone knows Bonanza's iconic instrumental theme, but what most people don't know is that it originally had lyrics. Written by Jay Livingston and Ray Evans, the words were even recorded by the cast. And let's just say, there's a reason they never made it to air. The lyrics were corny, awkward, and basically turned the Cartwrights into a singing cowboy quartet. Imagine Lorne Greene belting out, "We've got a right to pick a little fight, Bonanza." The producers quickly realized it didn't work and cut the vocals, leaving the galloping guitars instead. Good call. Otherwise, one of TV's most recognizable themes might have ended up sounding like a barbershop quartet on horseback. We're halfway through our ride across the Ponderosa, and I've got to ask, how many of these facts are news to you? Did you already know about the Cartwrights' never-changing laundry situation, or are you still trying to imagine Ben as King Arthur with a 10-gallon hat? Drop your favorite weird facts so far in the comments, and if you've got one I didn't cover, share it. I might rope it into a future video. And hey, if you're still watching, you probably like this kind of deep dive, so give that like button a tap. Hop Sing would approve. Number 8. NBC didn't make Bonanza colorful just to look pretty. It was a marketing scheme. RCA, which owned NBC, also sold color TVs. If audiences fell in love with the bright landscapes of Nevada, they'd suddenly want to upgrade from black and white. It was less about storytelling and more about capitalism on horseback. At the time, only a handful of shows aired in color, and Bonanza was the first Western to do it from day one. That gamble eventually paid off, cementing Bonanza as not just a hit series, but also a turning point in TV technology. So yes, the Cartwrights basically became salesmen for electronics, even while rounding up cattle. Who knew consumer electronics and cowboy hats went so well together?
Those two savages saved my life. Yeah, more like they stuck a knife in you first.
Number 7. In the 1960s, not everyone was ready for Bonanza's progressive streak. Some stations in the American South outright refused to broadcast episodes that portrayed the Cartwrights defending minorities or siding against racism. In one storyline, Ben Cartwright backed the freed slaves' right to live in peace. In another, the family defended Chinese immigrants. These plotlines seem tame today, but in their era, they were lightning rods. NBC often got angry letters demanding the show stick to Western action and leave the politics out, but that willingness to break the mold made Bonanza different. It wasn't afraid to mix six-shooters with social commentary, and while some stations balked, the show's massive audience proved that TV could teach as well as entertain.
Don't fight it, Mr. Cartwright. Just ain't no use.
Number 6. Set in the 1860s, Bonanza should have been a period-accurate Western. Instead, eagle-eyed fans noticed plenty of bloopers and anachronisms. Zippers on clothing, decades too early, firearms that hadn't been invented yet, even occasional background vehicles sneaking into outdoor shots. Continuity wasn't exactly the show's strong suit. Sometimes the mistakes were tiny, like a modern wristwatch flashing on an actor's arm. Other times they were glaring, like telephone poles in the background of Frontier, Nevada. But fans forgave it because the Cartwright stories carried more weight than nitpicking history books. Besides, what's a Western without a few tall tales? If the ranch occasionally had 20th century power lines, well, maybe the Ponderosa was just ahead of its time. Number 5. Few TV intros are as iconic as the flaming bonanza map and galloping horses, but if you watch carefully across the 14 seasons, you'll notice the opening sequence wasn't always the same. Different arrangements of the theme music were used, new shots of the Cartwrights riding in were filmed, and even the burning map itself changed slightly over time. In the first season, Adam, Hoss, and Little Joe rode in on cue, but as actors left or the focus shifted, the sequence got re-edited. By the later seasons, fans had their favorite version of the intro. It's the kind of detail that reminds you how long the show lasted. When your opening credits need multiple glow-ups, you know you've had one heck of a run.
Now, we told you to get off last month, McCall. We meant for you to stay off.
Number 4. On screen, the Cartwright family looked like the perfect example of loyalty and harmony. Off screen, not so much. Pernell Roberts, who played Adam, grew frustrated with the show's formula and left after 6 seasons, often criticizing the lack of character growth. Michael Landon, while beloved, had a reputation for clashing with producers as he pushed for creative control, foreshadowing his later role as a showrunner on Little House on the Prairie. Even Lorne Greene occasionally butted heads with network execs. Still, the chemistry worked when cameras rolled, which is what mattered most. The irony? A show about family unity sometimes had more drama behind the scenes than in front of it. The Ponderosa wasn't just a ranch, it was a pressure cooker.
Well, you just run out of luck.
Number 3. When Dan Blocker died suddenly in 1972, Bonanza had a decision to make. Most shows of the era quietly replaced actors or wrote them out without explanation. But this time, the producers did something groundbreaking. They acknowledged Hoss's death directly. Instead of softening the blow with a convenient storyline, they allowed the characters and the audience to grieve. It was one of the first times a major network series admitted that death touched its fictional universe. For a show built on family bonds, losing Hoss felt like losing the heart of the Cartwright clan. Viewers couldn't imagine the Ponderosa without its gentle giant, and frankly, neither could the cast. Ratings dropped, morale sank, and just 1 year later, Bonanza ended. In a way, Dan Blocker's real-life passing became the symbolic sunset of the entire Western era on TV.
You got it wrong. I ain't helping you. Oh, you're gonna help me, all right?
Number 2. Here's a weird twist in syndication history. Some Bonanza episodes have slipped into the public domain. That means anyone can technically distribute them without paying licensing fees. Sounds great for fans, right? Except there's a catch. Many of these episodes lost their original music, including that galloping theme song, because the rights weren't renewed. So instead of the thrilling Bonanza guitars, some versions play over completely generic stock music. Imagine watching the Cartwrights ride across the Ponderosa while accompanied by elevator jazz. It's surreal, and not in a good way. For die-hard fans, it's like someone swapped out your cowboy boots for flip-flops. Still, public domain status keeps the show alive in weird corners of the internet and budget DVD bins, making Bonanza both a classic and, at times, an accidental parody of itself.
Hey, Hoss, loan me 20 bucks, right? Hang on a second, I better make it 50.
Number 1. If you thought Middle-earth or Narnia had confusing maps, try figuring out the Ponderosa. Over 14 years, the ranch's borders shifted like quicksand. 1 week, it stretched all the way to Virginia City. Another week, it reached Lake Tahoe. Occasionally, it swallowed up entire towns or mountain ranges that didn't exist anywhere near Nevada. Fans who tried to map the place ended up with something resembling a fantasy realm rather than a working cattle ranch. Some episodes even referred to Lake Tahoe as Lake Bigler, while others ignored geography altogether. The writers treated the Ponderosa less like real estate and more like a narrative playground. Need a river? It appears. Need a desert? There it is. The Cartwrights basically lived on a ranch with the world's most flexible zip code. If Hogwarts had moving staircases, the Ponderosa had teleporting landscapes.